Welcome back, and now for the news in detail. Pakistan military says it is ready to crush any threats to the country's sovereignty. In a press briefing in Rawalpindi, military spokesperson Major General Babar Iftikhar said India is trying to divert the world's attention from its internal turmoil by escalating tensions at the line of control.
As Pakistan is observing Surprise Day to commemorate the country's effective response to Indian aggression on 27 February last year, the Pakistan Army reiterated its resolve to defend the country's territorial integrity.
We salute the bravery of all our soldiers that continue to fight bravely in front of the enemy. We are aware of all covert and overt operations of our enemies and are prepared for all scenarios. The game being played by India, Pakistan's civil and military leadership is very much aware of it.
The spokesperson also highlighted ceasefire violations by the Indian forces along the LOC. He said there have been 384 violations by India during the past year. The DGISPR also said the entire world is aware of what is going on in Kashmir.
In the past 207 days, the people of occupied Kashmir have been facing major violence and oppression. International media and human rights bodies have unmasked the violence in the occupied valley. While there are protests in India regarding this issue cannot be silenced any longer.
Commenting on the US Taliban peace deal set to take place on February 29th, the DGISPR said Pakistan has done its best to facilitate the Afghan peace process.
Pakistan is celebrating the first anniversary of the Surprise Day, commemorating its Air Force's victory over India on February 27 last year. Responding to Indian Air Force's aggression, Pakistan downed 2 fighter jets and arrested Wing Commander Abhinandan Varthaman. This report has the details.
Air Chief Marshal Mujahid Anwar Khan addressed a special ceremony by Pakistan Air Force held in Islamabad. Anwar Khan said, last year on this day, Pakistan's Air Force showed its superiority and lethality over India. He said Pakistan is a peace-loving country but will not tolerate any misadventure against its sovereignty.
Prior to aggression last year, our national leadership had made it amply clear that no misadventure against Pakistan would ever go unresponded. Today, I reiterate that commitment and caution. To respond to the aggressor was our compulsion, but measured and calibrated response was entirely our choice. Make no mistake, PF, when responds to irresponsible act, we may not always exercise restraint.
Pakistan Air Force also held a special air show in coastal city of Karachi, showing its professional and technological capability. The PF fighter planes JF-17 Thunder and F-16 participated in the air show and performed flying maneuvers. Political and military leadership, in addition to a large number of people from all walks of life, attended the show.
It has been 1 year since Pakistan shot down 2 Indian military jets and captured a pilot in a dogfight over Azad, Jammu and Kashmir. The aerial attacks across the line of control were the first since the 1971 Indo-Pak War. More in this report.
In February last year, 40 Indian troops were killed in an attack in occupied Kashmir's Pulwama district. The attack was carried out by a Kashmiri citizen, but India jumped the gun and blamed Pakistan for the incident. Pakistan's civilian and military leadership vehemently denied the Indian propaganda, terming the attack a false flag operation. Facing immense domestic pressure, India launched airstrikes in the town of Balakot in Pakistan's Khyber Pakhtunkhwa province. Pakistan's Air Force retaliated to the violation immediately, forcing IAF fighter planes to drop their payloads early. New Delhi claimed it targeted a terrorist training camp, but evidence showed its bombs only damaged a few trees. In the ensuing air battle, the PAF jets shot down 2 fighter jets and captured one of their pilots. However, Pakistan returned Indian pilot Abhinandan Varthaman as a peace gesture. But India continued to threaten the regional peace by revoking Kashmir's special status and violating the ceasefire along the LOC repeatedly. The situation between the two countries is still tense as Kashmiris are forced to live under an inhumane Indian curfew. Islamabad has repeatedly called on the international community to help stop the conflict from turning into an all-out war.
The Pakistan Army has held a media briefing marking the anniversary of Operation Swift Retort, which was Pakistan's befitting response to India's bombing of the town of Balakot this time last year. What in this report by Sumaira Khan?
The operation resulted in the downing of 2 Indian fighter jets and the capture of the Indian Air Force's Wing Commander Abhinandan Varthaman. Today, a monument has been built where Abhinandan's jet crashed and remains open to the public and international media. The Pakistan Army organized a tour of the site where they explained how they captured the pilot.
On 27 Feb 19, we observed intense aerial activity on the skies of our sector. Meanwhile, we just saw a jet coming down like a rock after an explosion, followed by a parachute which was descending downwards. So my commanding officer ordered me to move a QRF immediately and secure the site.
In an effort to maintain regional peace, Abhinandan was returned to India as a gesture of goodwill. But before that, the Pakistan Army nursed his injuries and gave him a taste of some Pakistani tea.
The QRF team brought the injured pilot to battalion headquarters where I was the medical officer. He was in a state of shock due to the fear, and his heart rate was fast, and he had lacerations on his face, cheeks, and on his head, and he was bleeding from the nose and from the face.
Unfortunately, tensions between Pakistan and India have remained high since the incident, with frequent ceasefire violations from India. The situation has deteriorated since 5th August 2019, when India illegally annexed occupied Kashmir. 1 year after India's unprovoked aggression against Pakistan, which was turned down by Pakistan's armed forces with full force, Pakistan still reiterates its firm resolve to give peace another chance and said that its hope and efforts to give peace another chance should not be taken as act of cowardness. Reporting for Indus News, Sumaira Khan, Hura Village, Line of Control.
Pakistan's President Dr. Arif Alvi says the riots in Indian capital New Delhi are a prelude to Muslim genocide in the country. Speaking at a seminar in Islamabad, Alvi said minorities have been under a constant threat in India since 1947. Alvi said the time has proven Pakistan's founder Muhammad Ali Jinnah's prophecy that Hindus never accepted Muslims as part of one nation. He said Muslims in today's India are being mocked and told to go to Pakistan. The president said Pakistan understands the danger of society's polarization that leads to terrorism. He said Pakistan treats its minorities with respect and goes the extra mile to ensure their rights. Alvi said as Pakistan is striving for peace in the region, while India is constantly rooting for war. The president said India started tradition and nuclear weapons race in the region, and Pakistan was sucked into it to establish a balance of power. The OIC and Turkey have strongly condemned the violence against Muslims in India's capital, New Delhi, resulting in the death of 34 people. They denounced the vandalism of mosques and Muslim-owned properties in New Delhi. During a speech in Ankara, Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan said India has become a country where massacres of Muslims are widespread. He said these massacres are being carried out by Hindus. Meanwhile, the OIC urged Indian government to bring the perpetrators of anti-Muslim violence to justice. It asked New Delhi to ensure safety of all its Muslim citizens and the protection of the holy places in the country. Prime Minister Imran Khan has once again called on the international community to act on Indian atrocities against the minorities. He took to Twitter to share renowned guitarist George Roger Waters' video condemning India's Citizenship Act. In the video that went viral on social media, Waters called on Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi's moves fascist and racist. Waters read out the English translation of a poem written by a young Indian poet and activist, Amir Aziz. The poem is critical of Indian government's moves to suppress dissent in India.
Everything will be remembered. Kill us, we will become ghosts and write of your killings, with all the evidence. You write jokes in court, we will write justice on the walls. We will speak so loudly that even the deaf will hear. We will write so clearly that even the blind will read. You write injustice on the earth. We will write revolution in the sky.
Pakistan's Prime Minister Imran Khan has met Qatari Emir Sheikh Tamim bin Hamad Al Thani on his day-long visit to the country. The trip comes days before the signing of the US-Taliban peace deal in Doha, scheduled for 29th of February. The Foreign Ministry says the focus of the visit is on strengthening bilateral cooperation and exchanging views on regional developments. It said Islamabad and Doha enjoy cordial ties based on mutual trust. In India, pilgrims are being questioned upon their return from Pakistan's Kartarpur Sahib Gurdwara. This has created an uproar by the opposition members in the Punjab Assembly. Speaking in the Assembly, Jails Minister Sukhinder Singh Randhawa said some pilgrims were questioned after receiving information from intelligence agencies. Aam Aadmi Party lawmakers described the questioning as shameful. Opposition leader Harpal Singh Cheema said that an FIR should be registered against the Director General of Police. Pakistan's Foreign Office says Chinese President Xi Jinping will visit Islamabad soon. In a press brief, the office's spokesperson Aisha Faruqi said the schedule of Xi Jinping's visit is being finalized. The spokesperson said Islamabad appreciates China's steps to control the spread of coronavirus. She said the virus outbreak will not affect bilateral trade. She said the federal and the provincial governments are taking effective steps to prevent the virus from spreading in Pakistan. Talking about Doha deal, she said agreement signing between the Taliban and the US is a positive development. Faruqi said Islamabad hopes the deal will lead to lasting peace and prosperity in Afghanistan. It's time for a short break. We'll be right back. Stay tuned. Welcome back. In China, another 29 people have died in the new coronavirus outbreak in the last 24 hours as the death toll tips over 2,700. Total cases of the virus have now exceeded 80,000 worldwide. While the outbreak in mainland China appears to have waned, it is spreading at a fast pace in other countries. More in this report.
As the rising cases of the new coronavirus ring global alarm bells, governments are stepping up measures to contain the outbreak. Italy has put 55,000 people in quarantine in 11 towns after deaths surged to 12, while the confirmed cases jumped to 400. Nearly 1,600 are now infected in South Korea, while 13 have died. Seoul and Washington have postponed their joint military drills.
The containment efforts of COVID-19 and the safety of ROK and U.S. service members were prioritized in making this decision. The decision to postpone training was initially raised by General Park Henry, Chairman of the ROK Joint Chiefs of Staff. General Robert Abe Abrams, Combined Forces Command, a United States Forces Korea commander, agreed to postpone the training.
In the Middle East, Iran registered the highest toll with 19 fatalities and 139 cases.
Our assessment is that we will likely see similar situations in other countries in Europe, and that the picture may, in the coming weeks, vary from country to country.
As the cases in Europe surge, Algeria, Brazil, and Pakistan have also reported their first coronavirus cases.
Saudi Arabia has temporarily suspended visas for the Umrah pilgrimage and visits to the Prophet's Mosque in Medina. In a statement, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs said these suspensions are temporary but gave no clue when it will end. The ministry has also stopped entry for tourists arriving from the states where the novel coronavirus poses a risk. The government said the precautionary measures have been applied to prevent coronavirus arriving and spreading in the kingdom. Saudi Arabia has no cases of the virus, but 7 Saudis are among the coronavirus patients in Bahrain and Kuwait. Saudi Arabia hosts millions of Muslim visitors throughout the year, peaking with the Hajj pilgrimage. The coronavirus is spreading more quickly in Europe and other parts of the world than in China. The disease was detected for the first time in Estonia, Denmark, Sweden, Norway, and Greece. Greece has reported 2 new cases in the past 24 hours, bringing the total number of the confirmed cases to 3. In Switzerland, the number of confirmed coronavirus cases has risen to 4. Meanwhile, France has cancelled a big finale of a carnival in Nice that borders northern Italy over the coronavirus fears. The carnival in the southern city started on 15th of February and was set for the finale on Saturday. France is on high alert and has so far confirmed 2 deaths and 18 infections due to the virus in the country. Turkey says 5 of its soldiers have been killed in an attack with the Syrian forces in the northwestern Idlib province. The defense ministry says Turkish forces destroyed 114 Syrian regime targets in response. The ministry said 3 Syrian tanks were also seized and an air defense missile system was destroyed in retaliation. It also said Ankara and Moscow are discussing ways to open Russian-controlled airspace in Idlib for armed and unarmed drones. Turkish Defense Minister Hulusi Akar said he was hopeful about ongoing talks between Turkish and the Russian officials. Earlier, Turkish-backed Syrian rebels recaptured the strategic town of Sarakab. The government forces said they have captured 15 villages and the town of Kafar Od from rebels in Idlib. Meanwhile, the Kremlin said President Vladimir Putin had no plans to meet Turkish President Tayyip Erdogan on 5th of March to discuss the situation in Idlib. The UN says it has sent 30 truckloads of humanitarian aid to the northwestern Syrian province of Idlib. The trucks have passed through the Shevelgzu border gate in the southern Turkish province of Hatay. Idlib falls within a de-escalation zone laid out in a deal between Turkey and Russia in late 2018. The zone is currently home to 4 million civilians, including hundreds of thousands forced from their homes. Syria has been locked in civil war since Bashar al-Assad's regime cracked down on pro-democracy protests in 2011. According to the UN, hundreds of thousands of people have been killed and more than 10 million others have fled in recent years. In Iraq, lawmakers have failed to agree on a new government, plunging the country deeper into political uncertainty. The parliament adjourned a session to approve a cabinet proposed by Prime Minister-designate Mohammad Allawi due to a lack of quorum. Government officials say Allawi's cabinet selection was heavily influenced by cleric Muqtada Sadr. A political crisis has gripped the country since October last year, killing over 500 people in mass protests against corruption and unemployment. The US has sanctioned the head of Iraq's Kataib Hezbollah over a rocket attack that killed an American contractor at a military base last December. In a statement, the State Department said the curbs on Ahmad al-Hamidawi are meant to stop him from carrying out more attacks. It listed Ahmad al-Hamidawi as a specially designated global terrorist. This freezes any US assets he may hold. American citizens are now prohibited from conducting transactions with him. The State Department also accuses the militia of involvement in sniper attacks against protesters in Baghdad that killed over 100 people. Iran's Deputy Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi says European countries have shown willingness to keep the 2015 nuclear deal alive. The minister said this after the 15th meeting of the JCPOA Joint Commission in Vienna. Talking to media, Araghchi said all the remaining parties reaffirmed the importance of this deal. He said Iran is fully prepared to reverse measures that apparently violate Tehran's commitments, but only if the other side reciprocates. Meanwhile, the EU said all the participants called the deal a key element of the global nuclear non-proliferation architecture. Representatives from China, France, Germany, Russia, the United Kingdom, and Iran attended the meeting. The United Nations says the first round of political talks on the Libya peace process has opened in Geneva. The announcement follows the refusal of the Libya's UN-recognized government to attend the meeting. UN spokesman Ariel LeBlanc said he had no information on the delegations taking part. Earlier, the UN mission for Libya said the political talks would begin with members of the parliament or independent figures. The political discussions are taking place after the completion of a second round of the UN-sponsored military talks between the warring factions. The UNSMIL said that both sides agreed to present a draft agreement to their respective leaderships. It said both the sides had agreed to meet again next month. Tunisia's new coalition government has won a vote of confidence in the parliament. This follows more than 4 months of political wrangling since elections. Members of the parliament voted 129 to 77 in favor of Prime Minister Elias Fakhfar's team after a debate which lasted more than 14 hours. The vote comes just days after Fakhfar announced a new alliance with Ennahda, the biggest bloc in the legislative body. Ennahda said with 53 seats in the 217-member parliament, it will only join a unity government that brings all the parties together. Last week, President Kais Saied threatened to dissolve the parliament and call for an early election if the government failed to win a confidence vote. The 2011 earthquake and tsunami, which caused a nuclear disaster in Fukushima, has come back to haunt Japan. While Tokyo insists the country is safe to host the Olympics, anti-nuclear associations have expressed grave concern over the danger of the radioactive leaks. More in this report.
Even before the coronavirus outbreak, uncertainty surrounded the 2020 Tokyo Olympics 9 years after the Fukushima nuclear disaster. When Tokyo announced plans to hold its baseball, softball, and football competitions 60 kilometers from the wrecked nuclear plant, protesters voiced their concern in front of the International Olympic Committee headquarters in Switzerland. In Lausanne, anti-nuclear associations met with IOC officials asking for a change of venue.
We can't confine the radioactivity 9 years after the accident. The radioactivity is everywhere in the area, on the ground, in the sea, and because of this, we are still under the state of nuclear emergency. So it is not normal that we organize such an international sports show under this authoritarian regime and nuclear urgency.
But the International Olympic Committee's sports director, Christophe Duby, says the games will go ahead as planned.
We are studying the situation for many years with the gamer organizers, and of course they act in coordination with central government, which itself mandated the International Atomic Energy Agency to follow local developments and the works undertaken and their effects, and we had the confirmation in the last months that the situation was going in the desired direction. And regarding the holding of competitions and the torch relay in the coming weeks, the conditions were such that the participants would take part in accordance with the organizers' plans.
Japan insists the country is safe from Fukushima radiation, with many countries having lifted Fukushima-related food import bans.
Qatar produces the highest level of plastic waste per capita of all the Gulf states. The government has now set a target to recycle 15% of the solid waste by 2022. For this reason, a weekly market has been introduced, encouraging visitors to shun plastic items. More in this report.
Qatar produces 2.5 million tons of solid waste every year. According to official statistics, only 8% is recycled. Qatari people also have the highest per capita CO2 emissions of any nation on earth. The country's economy is largely focused on fossil fuels. Single-use plastic is everywhere and little of it is ever recycled. In an effort to educate its people on the issue, the government has introduced the Torba market where plastic is banned.
So the motivation is basically seeing where we were, how far we've come since the inception of the market, and then how far we can go. I think there's always room to grow no matter what, and I think that's the motivation. Seeing any difference you make, whether small or big, I think really feeds into that notion.
Instead of selling plastic water bottles, the market has water stations where visitors can rehydrate themselves.
Over here we're setting up this mug library where you can borrow a mug and then return it, and we'll wash it, and that way we reduce waste from like plastic and paper cups. And it's been working so far. Every week we get more people coming, and I think it's become like a normal part of the market, so it's really exciting.
People visiting the market also wear badges emblazoned with plastic police. Foreign tourists are very pleased with the initiative.
I was really impressed because in Qatar in particular, sustainability hasn't been high on the agenda for a very long time, and now they're working really hard to do something with it, so it is really impressive. It's good to see those positive moves.
Every year, the market's management enforces stricter environmental measures. Launched in 2016, it now hosts dozens of stalls and attracts as many as 5,000 visitors every weekend.
More stories to follow right after a short break. Stay tuned with the news. South Africa has cut its economic growth forecast for 2020 by half. In a televised budget speech, Finance Minister Taito Mboweni said the economy will grow by 0.9%. Mboweni said inflation will average 4.5% in the current year. He said the state will be forced to cut $10.5 billion from the civil servants' pay over the next 3 years to reduce the public debt. The finance minister said reducing salary increases and the promotion of civil servants will save the government $2.4 billion. He said over the next 18 months, South Africa's economy could receive any number of boosts from the government. The ministry added, the recently announced reduction in interest rates and impending change in electricity regulation will help the economy. The US stocks have opened sharply lower, joining a sell-off in most global bourses over coronavirus fears. Disney was the worst performer in Dow Jones Industrial Average Index. Drop in the shares of ExxonMobil and Chevron further dipped the DJI. The indices of S&P 500 and Nasdaq Composite also landed in the negative territory. Time to take a look at the weather situation from around the globe. And that's all for now. For the latest updates, you can follow us on social media at Indus.news. Thanks for watching.